We're excited to present Social Benefits, The Journey Ahead, co-hosted by Samagra and Protean. Please welcome on stage our moderator, Gaurav Goel, founder and CEO of Samagra.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. A pleasure to be back at Charcha and co-hosting this panel discussion on social benefits. What we're going to talk about primarily in today's over the next 1 hour is government to citizen scheme delivery. So any benefit could be cash transfer or could be in kind that the government is giving to the citizens, the needy, the underprivileged typically. That's going to be the focus of our discussion. We'll also extend the discussion to service delivery. Because the mechanics of service delivery is not very different from scheme delivery. What are services? Services are things which anyone requires, right? Domicile, caste certificate, an income certificate, driving license, and so on. When there's no benefit being given, but there's a certain service being provided by the government. Also, what we'll do is make a small segue in the discussion on how is it happening in the private sector, how the corporates through their CSR are delivering the equivalent of schemes, which is cash transfers to the beneficiaries. And primarily, we're going to focus on scholarships there. But overall, the anchor is government to citizen scheme delivery. Now, this is an area that we as an organization at Samagra have had an opportunity to work over the last decade in multiple states, and not just specific to individual departments and individual ministries, but actually cross-cutting across all departments, ministries, and states. Our journey started here in 2017 when we were working with the Chief Minister's office in Haryana. And the overall mandate there was to kind of completely overhaul the government to citizen scheme and service delivery architecture in the state. And that's what led to conceptualization and subsequent implementation of something called Antyodaya Saral. That's the platform, that's the initiative which anchors all schemes and services in the state and continues till late 8 years down the line. Secondly, we're working on this domain in UP, in Uttar Pradesh, with the planning department, something called FamilyID. The idea is to create a resident database in the state, interlinking the data systems of different departments so that any scheme can be saturated. That means whoever is eligible for a particular scheme gets that scheme, and anyone who's not eligible but still is getting the scheme kind of it's weeded out. So that's what we're working on for the last 3 years in Uttar Pradesh. The third state we worked on this, currently working on this, is Andhra with Mr. Chandrababu Naidu with the CM office and the planning department of something called FBMS, Family Benefit Management System. Again, a similar concept that you have a database through which you can know the eligibility of all citizens for different schemes. And there the thought process is, can you deliver it proactively? From cradle to grave, from birth to death, there are different life events. You turn 3, you enter into a school. At 6, you kind of turn 18, you turn 60, senior citizen. So different schemes and services that you might be eligible for at those milestones, can the government proactively deliver it to you without you having to apply for it? So that's that's what we're working on in Andhra. And lastly, we're also working in Maharashtra with the CM office on something called GPR, Maharashtra Governance Process Reengineering, where the idea is to pick every government to citizen scheme and service and do process reengineering in that, and ultimately improve the experience of the citizen in dealing with the government. That's the net kind of outcome at the state level. So basis all of these different experiences over the years across different states, we've tried to put together a kind of a framework of if a government today, a state government today wants to overhaul its government to citizen scheme and service delivery kind of scenario, then what are the different components, what are the different areas of work that require focus. So let me briefly talk about this framework, and then we'll kind of move to the panel after that. So the first key component of this is the middle layer, which is the scheme delivery platform. Ultimately, there has to be a technology platform and some associated services with it, where a citizen can come, apply for any scheme of any department and easily track and receive the benefit. But it's more complex than what it sounds typically, because there are many things that need to be done around it for an effective service delivery platform. First is, as I said, process reengineering. You cannot take a as-is process and digitize it and have it available in one platform. You have to see how do you minimize the number of fields required, the number of documents required, the number of approval steps required. Is verification really needed, not needed? What's the data that can be automatically pulled from the existing government systems and we don't ask the citizen to fill it? So all of this constitutes process reengineering. So you process reengineer every scheme, every service, then you digitize the workflow on this platform. Right? And there might be legacy platforms that already exist in the state, which are already online. So you have to kind of link it to this platform, or if it's currently offline, you have to make it online and so on. So that's the second step. Third is, once that has happened, it's important to define or notify the timeline in which the government is committing that a particular service or scheme will be delivered. And that's where the Right to Service Act comes into the picture, the Citizen Charter comes into the picture, where you have a defined timeline and publicly make it publicly available to the citizen that in this much time, this particular scheme or service will get delivered. Fourth is to actually get an accountability in the system to stick to those timelines, right? One is to kind of announce, second is to make sure that it's happening within the timeline, and that's where the review systems, the dashboards, all of those things come into the picture. Fourth is citizen experience. It's not just about applying and getting something on time. It's about also what the experience has been in the process, right? So not everyone will go online and apply for it. So are there enough modes of assisted mode of applying for schemes and services? Is there a helpline? Is there kind of clear communication to the citizen? All of that forms part of the citizen experience. And lastly, closing the loop with the citizen through feedback. So government has done its job, but what's the citizens kind of feeling about it? So having that feedback and kind of acting on it. So all of this in some ways is part of the service delivery or scheme delivery platform, which is at the center of government to citizen scheme service delivery. So that's one component or one layer. The second layer or the second component is the resident database. And this is something that is becoming increasingly kind of popular across states, which is, do you have a database? The government has a database by various means, the various ways of creating the database. But at the end of the day, for every citizen, every resident, you know which scheme they are eligible for, what they're not eligible for. So you have enough attributes for every resident that you can actually determine the eligibility of different schemes. And you also would see that it says at family level. You actually need to have this visibility on families also, because eligibility of a lot of schemes is actually family dependent. Income, domicile, caste, these are family attributes, right? So therefore the understanding of the family also becomes important here. What this enables is the kind of things I was talking about earlier, right? This enables proactive scheme delivery. You automatically know who's eligible, so people don't have to apply, you can reach out to them. Right? This enables this, what I was saying, cradle to grave journeys. This enables saturation. All of those things become possible once you have this kind of a resident database. The third layer or the third component, macro component on this framework is scheme design itself. One is the delivery of the scheme, but how well is the scheme designed? We are a welfare state. There are hundreds of schemes that every state has, but how effective they are in meeting the objectives that they've set out for. And that's where Karthik Muralidharan, in his recent book, has given a very good framework of equity and effectiveness of different schemes, different welfare schemes. I've tried to kind of put it on this 2x2 quadrant, the different schemes. So he somewhere, for example, he says that farm electricity subsidy is the worst scheme. It doesn't serve the purpose on equity, doesn't serve the purpose on effectiveness, because large farmers are kind of getting the bulk of the subsidy because it's linked to the acreage and the land that you have. And secondly, it's not effective because it gives the perverse incentive to draw more water because electricity is free and you continue to grow paddy. And the groundwater also depletes and diversification doesn't happen. So it's not neither effective, not equitable. On the other hand, Mahatma Gandhi Narega, the Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme or ration distribution, they are better design schemes and so on. So there's a framework that exists for this, but that's what's so important. You have to design the right schemes and then only the mechanism will help kind of deliver them, then the effectiveness would happen. So those are the key components in our kind of experience of kind of having a best-in-class government to citizen scheme and service delivery architecture in any state or experience in any state. The good part is this getting a lot of traction over the last few years because this is where governance really, the rubber hits the road, right? Because the interface of the citizen with the government is actually on these schemes and on these services. And if that experience is good, then there's goodwill that's generated for the government. If the experience is bad, then you get bad feedback from the ground. So politically also, chief ministers, the new chief minister coming up, really focusing on this because this helps create that positive perception about the government. And if I were to just go layer by layer, let's say the bottom layer, the resident database, these are some illustrative examples here. Many states are actually embarked on this journey to create this base resident database through which eligibility of citizens for different schemes can be determined. These are some examples as you see here. Similarly, on the service delivery platform, the middle layer, right? There are many states who have that. Almost all states have some of the other kind of platform, but it's about the comprehensiveness of the platform and the quality of the platform. And these are some which are kind of relatively better ones. And then scheme design itself. One scheme that has been in the news for the last 2 years is this women DBT, cash transfers to women, right? State after states which have been going to elections, before the election there's a promise to kind of transfer X amount of money to the women, and the government after it comes also is kind of honoring that commitment. So it started off with the Ladli Behna in Madhya Pradesh, then Ladki Behna in Maharashtra, Subhadra in Odisha, Delhi, now Bihar. So this has become a kind of one of the most, I would say, talked about scheme in the last 2 years. There are hundreds of schemes, but there's a lot of nuances again in designing these schemes and whether it's useful, not useful, whether it's a freebie, quote unquote, whether it's effective. All of those things we'll kind of talk about. So this is the basic anchor framework on top of which we'll have the discussions today. I'm kind of happy that we have panelists. Each one of them almost specializes in one of these kind of components. And I introduce the panelists now and request them to come on stage. So our first panelist is Mr. T.C. Gupta. He's a 1987 batch IAS officer from the Haryana cadre, retired now, and he's currently the RTS commissioner of the state of Haryana. So he's the one who has closely seen the evolution of the Antyodaya Saral initiative and platform in the state, and now he's extensively leveraging them to build accountability in the system to deliver schemes and services on time. And I don't think it'll be an exaggeration to say, but what he has done with the RTS Commission in Haryana is almost a model for other states in the country. He'll talk about that. The second panelist we have, or actually we're supposed to have, is Mr. Alok Kumar. He's the Principal Secretary of Planning Department in Uttar Pradesh, and he's the one who's anchoring the FamilyID initiative, or the resident database that's kind of been created there over the last 2-3 years. But unfortunately, today morning itself, he had to kind of pull out. The Honorable CM called him for something that couldn't have been avoided, so he couldn't catch his flight. But we have, as a replacement for him, we have Ankit Goel. Ankit is my colleague at Samagra. He's the Vice President at Samagra, and he's very closely worked with Mr. Alok Kumar over the last 3 years on this resident database on FamilyID. So Ankit, welcome. The third panelist we have is Ms. Shubha Sharma. She is Principal Secretary, WCD, Women and Child Development Department in the government of Odisha. And she is the custodian, the anchor of the Subhadra initiative there, which is a cash transfer scheme for women. 50,000 crores the government has committed over 5 years, 10,000 rupees per annum to 1 crore women. And she's the one who's kind of leading, driving that initiative. Request her to kind of join us on stage as well, Ms. Shubha Sharma. And last but not the least, we have Rakesh, the Chief Business Officer at Protean Technologies. And Protean has built this kind of platform. It's trying to extend this scheme delivery thing to the private space. If corporates through their CSR want to give cash transfers to beneficiaries, then how can they go about doing that? They've created a Vidya Sarthi platform for this, and we'll be talking about that. So welcome, a huge round of applause for all the panelists, and we'll get started with the discussion. So we have roughly around, the plan is to spend around 40 minutes discussing with the panelists, and after that we'll open it up for questions and answers. So you can use the Mentimeter and give your questions in parallel. I'll start off with Mr. T.C. Gupta. He's the one who has kind of seen the evolution of Antyodaya Saral, which has been a key initiative in the state to overhaul scheme and service delivery. And I'll request him from his perspective and his long years of experience in the government and now as RTS Commissioner. What are some key elements of Antyodaya Saral from a citizen perspective and from the government perspective, which kind of help in scheme and service delivery? So you can articulate your understanding of it, and that'll be a good starting point.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. So coming to the brass tacks, this Antyodaya Saral portal, it's a unified service delivery portal, which every other state is having. But the thing is, in Haryana, it's very robust. Whatever information a citizen wants, in that case, it is there and it is regularly updated. And that is the mandate of the RTS Commission. What we do is, for example, most of the states I have seen, I have examined, and in my state also, the information was not updated. For example, if the scheme benefit has been increased from 51,000 rupees to 71,000. In that case, it will go on showing 51,000 rupees only. And the formats, we have done process re-engineering, and we have simplified the formats of more than 400 services where the 3-page form has been reduced to 1 form. So if you apply for any service in Haryana at the moment, there are more than 1,000 services which can be applied through the unified service portal. And that is the backend. And in that case, whatever applications are being received from cradle to death, he says from birth to death, whatever services are there, they can be applied through the Antyodaya Saral portal. At the moment, we receive about 15 lakh application a month for various services. You have to have, if you apply for a birth certificate, if you apply for any certificate, caste certificate, your income certificate, your building plan approval, your composition certificate, MSME is applying for a subsidy, or in that case, the grievances are not there, but for grievances, there are separate portals are there or the apps are there. We are trying to bring on those also, but some of the grievances are also listed there. For example, if your street light is not working in Gurugram or Faridabad, or if your garbage is not being lifted, in that case also we have connected that to the unified portal. How it works, I'll come to it later on. At the moment, this is a very robust system. If you go to that, you need not worry about that. I have penalized people if they have not updated the system, or if they have demanded another document which is not listed there. For example, in case of death, a person wanted to get a plot transferred in case of HSVP, HUDA, Haryana Urban Development Authority, it was earlier called, now it is Haryana Shahri Vikas Pradhikaran, HSVP. So, that's a Hindi name. So, in that case, he had demanded for one thing which was not listed. In that case, I penalized him, 5,000 rupees to be deducted out of salary. If it is not listed in that case, first of all, you had no business to call for that particular document. And if you have to call that document, in that case, get the documents listed. So for each and every service in Hindi as well as in English, that is there. And the processing is done either through the platform, or there are back-end processes of different departments. So if you are applying for a pollution certificate, for example, the industry wants to set up, and in that case, they are applying for consent. So in that case, there is a Government of India portal, but we have just in that case integrated that. In case of birth certificate, there is a Government of India portal. CRS portal is there. It's Government of India portal applicable throughout the country. You cannot apply at any other portal. But we have integrated that to the Haryana Antyodaya Saral portal. Actually, it is Saral portal, but our former Chief Minister, who is the Cabinet Union Minister now, he is very fond of Antyodaya, the person who is sitting last in the line. Ant ka uday karna. Antyodaya, if you do the breakup, Sandhi which you call. Ant ka uday, rise of the last person, last man standing in the queue. So it is called Antyodaya Saral portal now. So those who have experienced it, I would love to have during the question hour session their feedback about that. But as far as we are concerned, we are happy with that, because 15 lakh applications for a small state like Haryana, it's not a joke. And I must compliment Samagra, which conceived that. It was launched in 2017. And now, as on date, we have already received 10 crore 84 lakh applications, out of which 99% have been processed. 91% have been done within the RTS framework, RTS timeline. How this is being done, I'll come to that, but I can say it very proudly. At the moment, though I'm not being humble in that case, I can claim that we are number one in the country, unmatched by any other state. The RTS law is there everywhere in almost each and every state of the country. For example, in Delhi also, there is an RTS law. UP also RTS law, Maharashtra, but the implementation is practically zero in almost all the states except Haryana, Maharashtra, Karnataka. To some extent, there are helplines, CM helpline, etc. But the thing is, the penalty. What is the penal provision? If you complain about a street light not functioning on Haryana, the Saral Haryana portal, if within 10 days it is not repaired, in that case, be sure. In that case, there will be some adverse consequences, and that person need not apply for any appeal. So we'll come to that later on. But first, for the time being, this is the Antyodaya Saral portal, which is functioning very well. You have to only type Saral portal or Antyodaya Saral portal. In that case, you will be, and the advantage is, we are ranking each and every district. So the ranking is there. So we rank the district magistrate. They call DCs in Haryana. So out of 10 marks, what are their marks? 9.8. If they are 8.9, in that case, I pull up the particular deputy commissioner. The ranking of the department is there. The police department, the pollution department, all 71 departments, they are ranked. So they see their gradings, what is their performance. If it goes below 9.5, in that case, generally either there is a call from the commission or there is a stinker if it goes below 9. So in that case, so we are So everything you can see, it is all open to public. You don't need any login credentials, only the registration has to be there, but the dashboard everyone can see and it is open to public.
Yeah, and there are associated systems with it, like the Saral helpline, and if somebody needs to apply in an assisted mode, the whole network of Saral Canes and common service centers and so on and so forth. Thank you, Mr. T.C. Gupta, for laying this out.
Yeah, since time is there, to supplement that, there is a helpline which guides the citizen how to apply, and we receive about 3,000 calls a day. And 5 calls out of that on random basis are picked up by the commission. We hear to that, and we then guide the people. In that case, guide the call center agents who are there. In that case, this could have been better dealt. And if they are dealing it very nicely, in that case, we compliment those people also. And there have been so many learnings. For example, I'll just mention about small thing. A person who was there he was referred to a medical college, and the death took place in medical college. He applied for death certificate citing the place of death as that particular medical college. But in that case, his application was rejected. He called up the call center and they said, no, the place of death is there. But the thing is, since you have been, so that call center he was agile. He said ki wahan se aap karke dekhiye, you can apply from that particular hospital from where he was referred. That was Tosham. It was Bhiwani district, if you know the geography of Haryana. So he applied by showing place of death as Tosham. In that case, his death certificate was issued. So after listening to that, we improvised. In that case, if he can show place of death, either the medical college or from the referral hospital, in that case, the death certificate will be issued. Otherwise, suppose you just imagine the plight of a person who imagines for a service and the application is rejected. Now, what is the recourse? He'll be calling up or he'll be visiting that office. What happened to my application? Why this is not being generated? So in that case, we take the feedback, 5 calls a day, 3,000 calls a day we receive.
Yeah, thank you. So just in terms of time for clarity, that's the timer for us to finish the entire panel discussion. Yeah, and then we'll take audience questions. Now, this is the middle layer of the kind of framework we're talking about, the scheme delivery and the service delivery platform. Coming to the bottom layer, which is the resident database, and coming to you, Ankit, for it. There are 2 ways in which these resident databases can be created. One is to do a census survey across the entire state, survey every citizen and kind of try to create this database, verify as many things as you can on the ground. The second is by interlinking data systems of different departments. And there are different states who have taken different approaches. Some states have taken a hybrid approach where they kind of interlink the data systems, and whatever information is missing for that, they do the survey and so on. UP, Uttar Pradesh under FamilyID took a conscious call to not do any survey and just link the data systems of different departments. Taken 2.5 years to get to 80% saturation. Right? Why was that choice made? And while it sounds easy to kind of say interlink data systems, but it's a very, very tricky, complex job to kind of do that. What are some of the challenges that UP faced, and how we overcame that?
Yeah. Cool. So let me first talk about the scale of this FamilyID database right now. We have a total of 16 crore citizens out of the total 23 crore citizens of UP already in the FamilyID database. We collect information about them across 14 different attributes, basically all the demographic information, which will help us identify which schemes are these people eligible for, right? So that's something that we're collecting. And then we are also collecting information about what are the different schemes and services that these people have availed at any point in time. So all of that information right now resides in the FamilyID database. And like Gaurav mentioned, there were 2 ways of collecting all of this demographic information about people, right? We could go and do a survey, go to every household and ask them about their caste, about their income, about their occupation, about their education levels and all of that, and then populate that in a database, right? The other approach that UP has taken is that they decided at the very, very start that they would not actually approach any citizen for all of this information. This information resides in different government databases at different points in time, right? The revenue department, which is issuing caste certificates, for instance, will have information about every caste certificate that has been generated, right? Income certificate, very, very similar information would be available. Anybody who has done schooling in the state of UP, their education levels would be available there itself, right? If there is somebody who's enrolled in Manrega, we know that that person is a laborer. If we know that somebody is enrolled in a PM Kisan, we know that that person is a farmer, right? So all of this information is housed in various departments within the state of UP. It's just that it has never been aggregated or never been combined together at one place. So the state of UP took a call that we'll collect all of this information from the relevant databases only and not from the citizens. The primary reasons for doing this were actually 3. If I talk about the first one, the most important reason was that we want credibility of this data, right? We go to a citizen, we ask them certain information, we do not know how credible that information is. And the ultimate purpose of collecting all of this information is to give them benefits proactively. If we want to give them those benefits proactively, we need to be confident about these attributes that we have collected about these people, and which is why we need information from the specific department, right? The verified information only is collected at one place. The second is the ease of updation. If this information gets updated in any database at any point in time, it gets easily reflected in our family ID database. We don't need to go back to the citizen, or the citizen doesn't need to come to the government again and again to tell us that information has changed. Right? Some person is alive and that person is now expired. We know that information because a death certificate has been generated. The income levels have changed. We know that because the new income certificate has now been generated. Somebody has changed their address in their Aadhaar and we know that information now. Right? So the citizen does not need to go to multiple places to update this information now, and all the latest information is always available in this database. And the third is it's actually much easier to do. Right? On the face of it, it seems very easy to do. Conducting a survey of 24 crore people, 23 crore people would have taken a lot of time, while we could start very quickly because we had all this information from all of these databases. Now, on the face of it, it seems very, very easy, right? Just connecting all of these databases together and getting all of this information at one place. Nobody else has done it though. The primary reason is it is very difficult to work with multiple different departments and database structures and tech teams and get all this data pulled together at one place. Yeah. So that is something that we've been able to do. Some of these databases are housed within the state government. Some of these are housed with the government of India. We've worked with all of these different departments and databases to get them at one place. The other important thing was we need to have a unique identifier to know that we're collecting the information about the same person from everywhere. And that is where Aadhaar comes in. So Aadhaar was supposed to be the unique identifier. The problem is many of these schemes in the state of UP did not have Aadhaar authenticated. Right? They were not notified for collecting Aadhaar. They were not collecting Aadhaar. Even when they were collecting Aadhaar, they were not probably authenticating it. So over the last 3 years, bulk of the effort has also been on working with these departments to first get their schemes notified. Right? When we started in the end of 2022, the caste certificates, income certificates were not linked to Aadhaar. We worked with that department to get Aadhaar notified and then finally create a tech portal where they could now start collecting Aadhaar and start authenticating it. So ever since February 2024 now, all certificates in the state of UP are authenticated, right? So that's the bulk of the work that has been done. We have done this already with some 35 different schemes and services in the state of UP where Aadhaar authentication has now happened, right? And then the linkages have been established with 97 different schemes, 85 of which are from the state government and 12 of them are from the central government. To the extent that we've also now linked information about if people are filing their income tax returns, right? So if somebody is filing an income tax return, the state would know. And that would also become an exclusion criteria, right? A person who's filing an income tax return, nobody in their family should be availing ration, as simple as that. Yeah. If there are spouses in a particular family, they should not be getting the benefit of, let's say, PM Kisan, right? So they should be excluded automatically. So that's something that we've been able to do. But the reason why all of these use cases are already being enabled on the ground is because of this initial design choice that we took, that we'll collect information from the relevant databases, not go to people to conduct a survey, and then ensure that it is updated at all points in time.
Yeah, thanks Ankit for the comprehensive answer. I'll come to Shubha ji now, and specifically want to begin by talking about Subhadra. Subhadra was a scheme which was a poll promise of the BJP getting to elections last year, and June is when the government got sworn in, and I think over the next 4.5 months later, the scheme was launched with Honorable Prime Minister. It's a very short amount of time to launch a scheme of that magnitude of kind of 50,000 crores for 1 crore beneficiaries and so on. So what were some of the things that went kind of behind this over those 3-4 months to actually get the scheme going? And if you talk about the framework, then were there elements of the first 2 layers that helped kind of do the third one so quickly?
So thank you, Gaurav. My job is already easier because the first 2 speakers have mentioned some of the components which went into Subhadra's making. As Gaurav said, after 25 years under Mr. Naveen Patnaik, a new government came in June of 2024. And one of their very prominent poll promises was that they would have a scheme wherein they would give vouchers worth 50,000 rupees to every eligible woman in the state. We have a population of 4.2 crores, so roughly we assumed 50% would be women. It was also decided that The first cabinet meeting was held on 12th of June, and therein the cabinet approved this proposal, and it was decided that on 17th of September, Honorable Prime Minister would be visiting Bhubaneswar and would be launching the scheme. So that gave us roughly less than 100 days, and the scheme was huge. So we did not have a family ID, which UP had created. And before we launched the scheme, we did a kind of a desktop research. Some of the schemes which Gaurav showed on the screen about DBT to women, they were not comprehensive. There were 18 schemes, I remember. So you missed out Arunodaya and Assam and a couple of others. And there were multiple schemes in the same state also looking at different age groups. But perhaps some of the best rolled out schemes were Ladli Behna in Madhya Pradesh. And that was done over a very long period of 2 years with a family ID serving as the foundation for that. We didn't have the luxury of time. My team was also very clear we did not have the luxury of making mistakes, which had happened in another state where because of paucity of time a scheme was rolled out and they had Sunny Leone and Virat Kohli and all these kind of names in the list of beneficiaries. So we did not want to go down that road. So what we did was, we had to be very clear on what is the objective of the scheme. Is it only about cash transfer? And we got a lot of opposition with closed room discussions saying women will fritter away this money. It will be used for purchasing saris, bindis, makeup. Their husbands will take it away from them and drink liquor. And all kinds of apprehensions were voiced. But again, I think we were very lucky we managed to have consensus that this is not only a cash transfer. This is about building agency, about building decision making, about empowering women and how the role that she plays in her family. So after doing a study of all the other schemes, we culled out the best features that we thought were there in terms of the implementation as well as the eligibility of beneficiaries. We also sent teams to Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh in this short span that we had to see it. We looked at centrally implemented schemes like PM Kisan, which also does DBT for the farmer community. And then we had massive stakeholder consultations with civil society, with the political leadership, with stakeholders, with everybody under the sun, because we did not want to give vouchers, which could be again transacted further, and we were in favor of having DBT. We also wanted to make it an entirely online application approval system so that there is transparency, and we wanted to bring in a lot of transparency measures. With some of this, we managed to do back-end database integration. So one of the exclusion criteria is that if you have a four-wheeler registered in your name, and therefore the RTO, the Registry for Transport Vehicles, was able to give us database from the back end. Similarly, if you were getting pension above a certain amount, you would be ineligible. So then the pension database came in handy. And then obviously the Food Security Act, those who were getting benefit under that, we looked at them as the prime beneficiaries because they were established. The term that sir used, Antyodaya. So there is an Antyodaya Anna Yojana. They are the poorest of the poor. So can we do that? 2-3 things that we had to do, which I think were part of your efficiency matrix, that because we did not have the luxury of time, we did not set up a new structure, new commission, nothing. We just went ahead with our existing systems, existing databases, used our ICDS because I am heading the Women and Child Development Department. So the entire ICDS machinery, the Anganwadi workers, the common service centers, which were not vitalized at that point of time, came into playing. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we have managed to disburse benefit to 1 crore 3 lakh plus women. We have received 1 crore 13 lakh applications as I speak. And we are proud to say that there is 100% traceability. Each one of them has an Aadhaar number. It is a DBT into her bank account. It is an Aadhaar bridge payment system. So the payments are all through Aadhaar. And thankfully, we have not heard or got any major complaints on this score.
Thank you. Thank you, Shubhaji, for sharing the journey of Subhadra and how it got off the ground. I now come to Rakesh. And Rakesh, you can talk about the Vidya Sarthi initiative, right? As I'm saying that the equivalent of scheme delivery somewhere in the corporate CSR space, specifically focused on scholarships to begin with. If you can explain where it come from, the concept, and what exactly does the initiative do?
Sure, Gaurav. First of all, thank you for this inviting me here and being part of this August panelist. Before I go to Vidya Sarthi, just a couple of pointers to add to what the discussion was going on. At Protean, we are one of the largest ID services based organization from a data side. We have multiple IDs that we provide. So in terms of what ma'am was talking about from a DBT schemes perspective, we've been nearly 50 crores of the PAN cards issued today in the country is happened through Protean systems. We are also very strongly integrated into Aadhaar. We are strongly integrated into multiple ID systems. So today we do provide services to multiple states wherein a very easy and seamless flow of ID verifications towards the schemes happen. So that's one part of it that we do. Apart from that, we also have a very strong assisted network. We nearly have 1 million plus assisted network, which helps citizens in terms of the G2C services. So these are the two elements where we play a very, very strong role in terms of serving the citizens and ensuring the government initiatives reach to the last mile. So coming back to the question, Gaurav, and thank you for asking about Vidya Sarthi. This is core in terms of the, and like Gaurav talked about it, this delivery from the CSR perspective. But let me, begin with saying what's the need of it. So what's the need of something which will help the funds flow towards the education part of it? And this I'll broadly talk about from a private enterprises perspective. I'll touch upon the government and public sector units also. But you'll be happy to note that today, nearly 30,000 crore plus CSR funds are available with the corporates, of which certain percentage goes in terms of the education part of it. Let me share in terms of some of the figures that will help you understand the overall perspective, and I'll compare it with some of the countries in terms of why this funding for education is important. And let me quote some countries and some figures. There are three parameters on which this entire education CSR banks upon. One is the gross enrollment ratio. Now, this gross enrollment ratio is actually participation of corporates, both public, private, and the partnerships related to it in terms of participation. Today, our country, while we all know that probably the fastest growth in GDP from a perspective of various countries, however, our ranking is 105th in terms of this parameter. And also some percentages will help to understand. Singapore's, this ratio is 98%, Australia is 105%, US and UK are around 79 to 80%, and we in India are at 33%. Now this is despite this funds that I talked about. This is where the participation in education by not only private and public and the governments is hovering at. The second parameter is in terms of affordability. Today, if you see, there's a fall in the education. I mean, there are students who are interested in education, but they are not able to take their education objective or aspiration further, and there are a lot of dropouts that happen somewhere around 11th standard. This is largely again because of what they are unable to afford. Again, in this environment, if you look at it, Singapore is less than 1%. Australia is nearly 0.2, 0.3%. US and UK are in between 19 and 14%. India is again greater than 40%. So these are the two fundamental causes, which is where the education and the funds being available has to have a very different and differentiated approach and focus. This is where we come in. So what does Protean do in this space? So we provide a platform which is a tech-enabled platform, and secondly, we also provide the project management capabilities. So we get the seeker and the giver together on this platform to help the students. So therefore, three elements to it. One is the corporates, be it private, public. Second is the students who wants to receive that. And third is an ecosystem of NGOs who helps enable in this entire environment. So this is the play that we do and the space that we've been doing. We nearly contributed, probably in the next part of the discussion, I'll also share what is the impact so far that we have created. and how are the enterprises coming together. So while the funds are there, but there are a lot of ground level challenges. Each of the panelists talked about challenges in terms of the last mile and the delivery part of it. Likewise, in this space, easier said than done, the challenges are humongous, and also there's a compliance related to it. Because if you look at it, what's the good things that have happened is, on the Company Act of 2013, there are clearly identified 12 themes in which organizations, private organizations, of their percentage needs to contribute. So these are the key elements which can take these 105th rank for greater than 40% of what we have in these ratios to place our country in the leading roles.
And Rakesh, if you can also share the impact quickly, because I don't think we'll be able to come back to Vidya Sathi again given the time. And that's the same for all the panelists. I'll have to kind of a little bit given time to trim the questions. But if you can also talk to the impact quickly of Vidya Sathi.
Yeah, sure. So the impact of this initiative is countrywide. Even at the remotest of the places, there are examples that you could look from a perspective of migrant laborers, students getting the right to education through these initiatives, and corporates having to believe in this part of it. There's one impact that's created. It helps a lot. There is in terms of girl child education. So we've been able to fragment, let's say in Odisha, if in a specific village and environment around that, a girl child between 16 to 21 has to be embedded with funds on education. This platform can do that. The entire project management capabilities of showing across compliance to reporting, we have nearly distributed 107 crore plus funds. Today on this platform, on an yearly basis, nearly 1 million plus students come in and check multiple credibilities. In the entire framework, they also are able to understand what kind of funds, etc., will they get, what could happen from a corporate and what could happen from the public environments. What actually it requires further is also a very strong relationship between public and private sector. So the impact is countrywide, impact is to different age groups, impact is to ensure that these two matrices that I talked about, India as a country can become better, and this is a huge ecosystem play.
Thanks, Rakesh. I'll now come to Mr. T.C. Gupta. You talked about Antyodaya Saral and what it does and what kind of platform it is. But how, as the RTS Commissioner, you've really leveraged it to get accountability in the government system towards the RTS, Right to Service Act? I think that'll be very interesting to hear.
Accountability is very important because the RTS Act is there throughout the country, in each and Delhi, UP, as I already said. But the accountability is not there because supposing, for example, you apply for a birth certificate, it is not given to you in 10 days, notified in UP or notified in Maharashtra or Madhya Pradesh or in Haryana. In that case, under the act, which is a general thing, all these acts were enacted around 2011 when Anna Hazare movement was there, India against corruption. So at that time, there was awakening in the country, and at that time, all the states, they had enacted this act for citizen services. So now that person has to file an appeal. Now that appeal, he doesn't know how to file an appeal. The appellate authority, there's no online platform available for filing an appeal. So in that case, he will go to the first appellate authority who might be at the district headquarters. For example, Narsinghpur village in Madhya Pradesh, he has to come to Bhopal to file an appeal. In case of Haryana, supposing in remote Narnaul, he has to file an appeal. In that case, he'll have to come to Gurugram. And the second appeal would be at Chandigarh. So in that case, what we have leveraged is, we have developed a system which is called auto appeal system. It is called AS. And we have been telling people, we will not, आप हमसे आशा रखो, हम आपको निराश नहीं करेंगे. Auto appeal system. If you just log in, if you just go on, means if you search auto appeal system in Haryana, in that case, no login credentials needed. You'll come to know in how many services it was not delivered in time. What happened to that? And in that case, if you visit our website, in that case, you'll come to know of the orders which have been passed. Now, if you have applied for any scheme, anything, now there are three things. We are talking basically of scheme, but in that case, if you have applied for a service also, after the notified period is over, in that case, automatically the appeal would travel to the next authority without that person having applied. For example, if his sewer is blocked, so in that case, 2 days the sewer has to be opened. In that case, after 2 days, it will automatically move to the Axion. And if he does not decide that within 30 working days as per the Act, we are trying to bring it down by getting an amendment done in the Act. So it will move to the second authority and then to us. We have penalized the Axians and the superintending engineers. If in case you apply for a passport, and in that case the passport verification is not done within 10 days, verification, police verification, in that case that's HHO. He'll face the music. I already penalized 2 SHOs. They went to the High Court. They lost out also. Now the thing is, if you experience anybody residing in Haryana, if you apply for a passport, did not go anywhere, police verification will happen 5th day or 6th day. They will not wait for 10 days because the SHO, they are scared of the RTS commission. All the 400,000 employees of Haryana, they are scared of the RTS commission like anything. If you apply for a character certificate in case of police, if you apply for any department, 809 services, we call them services, but they are grievances, they are services, and there are benefits. So grievances, for example, if there are potholes in the road. Now, it is not integrated with Antyodaya Saral portal. I am trying to get it integrated. There is a portal called Mhari Sadak, which has been recently launched by the Chief Minister Haryana. So Mhari Sadak, but in case your street light is not working, your garbage has not been lifted, your water connection is not released. So water connection is a service, and all the services which you can think of. If the student, now we have got even notified the issuance of mark sheet. So if the mark sheet is not given within 30 days of declaration of the result, your degrees, your migration certificate, with thought of the groups, the students, they need these services, what can be notified? The women, they need these kind of services, what can be notified? And for your kind information, for the information of the house, we have got a very robust family ID system, and I think we were the first one to start it, Parivan Pehchan Patra, and many services are being delivered in proactive mode. The student, the person need not apply. For example, the ration card, he need not apply. The old age pension, he need not apply. The income certificate, the caste certificate, he needs to apply. But on family ID, this caste has already been filed, it has already been verified. The verified tick will appear, and we have got family ID of all the households in the state. In that case, if you apply with click of a button, your caste certificate will come. Click of the button, your income certificate will come. Click of the button, your other things will come. So in that case, and other things are also being given for the women, your Aapki Beti, Hamari Beti scheme, Matratva Yojana, all those kind of things, marriage. There are various assistance which are given on solemnization of marriage to various marginalized sections of the society in that case. So Antyodaya Saral portal has been used just to enforce accountability in the system, and whosoever is applying for a particular service, it is only Haryana where that person need not file an appeal. It is automatically escalated to the concerned authority, and in that case, either the service is delivered or the accountability is fixed. That is the motto, and we are living up to that expectation of Haryanvis.
Thank you, Mr. Gupta. Now, I'll quickly, Ankit, if you can give one example of how you talked about how the family ID database or the resident database in UP got created, but one example to illustrate how it's being leveraged to do saturation of schemes or to kind of do proactive delivery. Quickly, one example, and then we'll come to Shubhaji.
Okay, so overall, actually, family ID is being now used for a lot of proactive inclusion and exclusion across schemes. And if I were to talk about what has happened over the last 1 year, is at least 1,000 crore plus rupees of the government have been redirected to the right beneficiaries, either by removing certain people who were not eligible for the scheme or by identifying people who should be getting that benefit, right? The one example that I would want to talk about is the Zero Poverty program that the Chief Minister of UP launched last year on 2nd of October. The idea was that we identify the poorest families in the state, which they did. We identified 12 lakh such families, and then get them out of multidimensional poverty, right? So identify what are the key benefits that they're already getting from the government, and then get them all the other benefits that they're eligible for, but they're not getting right now. What Family ID powered was the quick enablement of finding out which schemes are they already availing and what are the other schemes that they're eligible for. Right? And there are some 20 such schemes, a whole list of 20 such schemes which the state has now compiled, and they're pushing the relevant departments to actually proactively reach out to these families and give them the benefit of these schemes. Right? It could be as simple as, let's say, a pension scheme, and if there is somebody disabled in the family, then they're getting that disability pension very quickly, because now we have also linked with the Universal Disability ID of the Government of India. Right, so that identification is done at the state level, and then that actual enablement is done at the ground level. That's something that is being done. But we're also pushing for all the other things, like, let's say, a PM Ujjwala, right? Or it could be something like the provision of a toilet in these families, right? To get these families out of multidimensional poverty. So that's, I think, the major unlock that is happening in the state.
Thank you. Thanks, Ankit. I'll come to Shubhaji now. You talked about how Subhadra kind of got off the ground. But one thing that always kind of comes in discussions for these women cash transfer schemes are their freebies, right? Quote unquote freebies, which are being kind of doles being given by the politicians to people to kind of get goodwill, get votes. But you recently, I know that conducted a survey with IIM Sambalpur, through which you actually done a study of what's happening to the money which is being given to the women. So what are some of the findings of that survey? And also I will want you to kind of extend that once you have talked about Subhadra to say in general, if you were to do scheme design, what are some of the principles to keep in mind from the government basis your experience as an administrator? Some general principles. Karthik gave that 2x2 metric, but what's your kind of some of the things to keep in mind while designing any scheme for that matter?
Show the video first.
We can do that in the middle. You can talk about, should we want to start with the video?
I think it will be nicer.
So she's also kind of shared a video. That video basically is a video of a Subhadra beneficiary. So let's first hear what's the feeling of the people on the ground and then look at numbers that are coming out from the survey.
बसैकी आलोचना कलु जे एई नईटा को आम लीज आनिबा आउ सफा करवा केमती पैसाटा कौटू आसो खर्च पाई या भाबु भाबु हठात से सरकार जो सुभद्रा योजना आसला आम भाविलु जहाँ गोटे भल अपरचुनिटी आसीगला आम तो सुभद्रा योजनार पैसाटा आम 65 मेम्बर हेले एत लोकर पैसा को आम जब एकजुट करें तो बहुत अमाउंट होना 5000 टका लेखा आणिक निजर माने परिवार को देखिक परिश्रम कर नईटा को पुनरुद्धार कर
हाथर परिश्रम रे केवल नदी सफा हेलानी ता सहित बदली गला गाँर भाग्य एबे ए 32 एकर अंचल माछ चाष पई प्रस्तुत हेउछि
लोगों बसे
So this was, as I mentioned, one of the major fears and apprehensions of even people in the civil service, that this money may not be put to the use for which it is intended. But recently we had a study done by IIM Sambalpur, and this was one of its kind initiative, at least in Odisha, wherein college students have been roped in. So we have 22,000 beneficiaries of Subhadra out of the 1 crore 3 lakh women who have received benefits. It's a stratified sample cutting across age, social categories, geographies across 30 districts. And they were asked 5 questions in 4 buckets. Some basic details about themselves. What is their aspiration? What is the financial agency that they are going to use? And how have they put this money to use? And the findings are very, very significant for us, both as the department which has rolled out this scheme and also as a learning in general, which is that 80% of the women have put it to productive use. And this productive use can be further broken up. About 35 to 36% have put it in livelihood generating opportunities. And the most common livelihood opportunities are buying a sewing machine or into poultry or livestock. So cattle, goats, which is popular. The other major activity that has emerged is if they had a small tea shop or a tea stall, they have used this money for working capital or for expanding that and increasing their income. The other roughly 24% has gone into repayment of loans or using it as a collateral to draw more capital and credit. Some 24% women or 25% women have used this money for skilling themselves further or investing in their education. And yes, there is 20% who has used it for some kind of consumption expenditure, which also, if you look at it from the perspective, had they not had this money, they would have gone to some informal money lending mechanism if there is a health crisis in the family. But more than this data, I think what really moved me, and I would like to thank the Samagra team for doing a lot of deep analysis, is that women's role in decision making in their family has surged, especially for those who are above the age of 35. So the younger generation perhaps is not so involved in the family decision making, but now that a woman is getting this 10,000 rupees, she is participating in how this money is to be used 100% and also in other decisions of the family. And if I were to design a scheme, I mean, obviously learnings from Subhadra are phenomenal. So we made a small acronym a few days back when we were working on this, and we called it Odisha. So O is for online, and we want to do, because we had our application online, our grievances online, our appeals are online, everything is online. That allowed us to analyze data and have clear measurable outcomes. So online enabled and outcome focused for O. D, deliberate and design. I don't know how many hours we spent talking to everybody. And the only thing was find a fault. We don't want an outsider to come back and find faults in our system. Let us find faults within. Look at it as critically, as maliciously as possible. But if something can go wrong, let us do that. That helped us in bringing in a lot of transparency. It helped us in making things simple and in having trust in our people. Third, I think what Mr. Muralidharan also mentioned and which you have shown is the inclusiveness. So Odisha has I in it, inclusive. We mapped villages from where no applications had come. Our field functionaries visited those villages, got applications filled in and did it. S is for symbolism with substance. So you trigger people's imagination. There was a tagline, Kotiye Subhadra Guttiye Deepa, which meant 1 crore Subhadras, each of you light a lamp. And that day, it was nearer Diwali. Every woman who had received this benefit lit a little lamp. And it triggered people's imagination. Our dates of disbursal are Rakhi and International Women's Day. There are many, many symbolic gestures in the scheme. H for good human resource utilization. Identify the talent. Each one of us is good at something. Put the right person in the right job. And mistakes happen. Accept it. Move on. And the last A is the agility to respond. So the feedback loop and the Subhadra Samikya done by these young college students has given us a lot of feedback. How do you quickly change your systems to respond to a changed scenario and remain flexible? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shubhaji. Odisha is a good kind of framework for scheme design. I'll take some audience questions now. The first question is for Mr. T.C. Gupta. So what somebody is asking is that great, Haryana has done an outstanding job with Saral and with RTS and all of that. But what's the bottleneck? And this is a general question based on your experience again as an administrator of replicating it across states. What comes in the way typically? Why is it so difficult to kind of do this?
First of all, the legislative amendments will have to be done in the Act. Then I am glad that various states have visited Haryana. Maharashtra has visited, Assam has visited. We have actively assisted Assam. Jammu Kashmir, we have entered into an MOU. And then the hearing about all this, then the Cabinet Secretary called me for personal presentation on 2nd of April. Then he deputed as Special Secretary 90 Batch Bihar Cadre Officer and the Additional Secretary to Haryana. And then I'm glad to share, say in that case, they were satisfied. They visited us only 1 month back and it has been included in reforms 2 agenda of Government of India. I think Honorable Prime Minister is going to announce this replication of ours. My firm belief after 38 years in the system, I joined IAS in 1987 is, all these acts, unless the accountability is fixed, unless it is implemented, they'll remain on paper. And in all other states, they remain. In Haryana also, in most of the departments, earlier they were not willing to come on us and they were taking the alibi. This is Government of India portal, it cannot be integrated. The transport department, they refused. Then I had to personally intervene, visit Government of India, talk to the concern. And then Vahan and Sarthi, they are all on us. The difference is, during last 4.5 years, I got only about 10 to 12 emails or complaints regarding delay in driving license or registration of vehicle or change in address, blah, blah, all those things. Only 10. But after the coming of this department and this AS portal, automatically there are more than 30,000 during last 3 months. You can check it. Means you have to just write AS Haryana and then go to the department transport, how many appeals have been raised. You can go to any department. You can see it yourself. And no password, nothing. You will go to the dashboard and then if you want to click even the 30,000, you'll get the details of all 30,000. If you want to have details of only Gurugram or particular district, you'll get all the details. So it is not data in the air. So if the auto bill, because that person is not going to take the trouble of sending me an email or coming to me or making a phone call. So if it is replicated elsewhere and in Haryana also we are working to integrate each and every service. For example, NHA has in writing refused to share the API of their portal. I said my Ask portal has been developed by NIC. An Ayushman card has to be issued in 10 days. I know it is not being issued in 10 days, right? So it can be issued only if I see the data. If the person are coming to me, if they are complaining to me, in that case, I've dealt with very heavy hand. But if I come to know how many persons have applied for Ayushman card and how many have not got in time, in that case, and it can be done only when the integration is there. So integrations are a challenge and the bureaucrats, generally they are resisting it because I have issued more than 400 notices to IAS, IPS and the Indian Forest Service officers. So generally everybody is up in arm. Even the senior bureaucracy, they'll say yes, but on the back they are trying to torpedo the system. Anyways, but against all odds, we are moving it.
Thank you for that energy also. I think that's what is required to make some of these things work. A question for you, Shubhaji, and this is a question that is expected also, that cash transfer is fine, but what about livelihoods of women? And aren't there other important things to be done to kind of really do women empowerment? While cash transfer, DBT is one part of it, but what's the government, for instance, doing on livelihoods?
So their government policy on livelihoods is a very broad and vast policy which is working. Cash transfers to me would be one part of that which enables women to bridge that gap, which they would otherwise have perhaps no recourse to bridging. And as you saw in the video itself, we had not thought of this, that 25 women will come together. They pooled in their 5,000 each, 75,000, and they revived a dying river. And this was so amazing. It was a great learning for us also. So I think we need to also stop thinking that policymakers know everything. We need to have some faith and trust in the woman who is getting that 5,000 or 10,000 rupees. She is not going to waste it, which was our apprehension or some of our colleagues' apprehensions. So, yes, cash transfers help, but definitely the overall environment has to be a very supportive environment where she has access to credit, she has access to skills, and you put that money to good use.
Thank you. Last question now for Rakesh, and this is around CSR in general. You talked about education component of CSR and how the Vidya Sarthi is enabling that. But CSR is, like, as you yourself mentioned, 30,000 crore plus amount of money that's available. And what is it that can be done to kind of, through a tech-enabled manner, channelize CSR overall in the country? And there's something called LIFE, from what I know that you have. You can quickly talk about that and we'll then end the discussion with that. So over to you to talk about LIFE.
Can I use a presentation also? If that's on?
You can quickly, yes. You can do whichever. Can we have the presentation that Rakesh?
Yeah, so by the time the presentation is coming on, let me take that time. So I talked about nearly 12 thematic areas, and there are 17 goals, united goals. No poverty, no hunger, sanitation, health. Thank you. So these are the keynotes on which the Protean life is based on. We talked a little about in detail about education part of it. So this, like ma'am was talking about, we have solved one problem from a perspective of an organization who was wanting to do aspects related to water treatment within a very small village around Pune, which helped 1,000 farmers to get their livelihood, get the water cleanliness done. So these are the elements that we've been doing in one of that space. That's why we're calling LIFE, which touches the health part of it. So we have done some spectacular work in terms of Tri-G in the state of Maharashtra for the health part of it, where multiple clinics are integrated, and it helps the people, the ground level people, to get the medical attention at the right time, at the right instance, with the right elements. So multiple elements on the life side that we do. I touched upon the healthcare part of it. We touched before that on the education, which lies in the Vidya Sarthi part. Then we also touched upon in terms of the healthcare. We also, on the healthcare side, we worked very creatively with the Haryana state a couple of years back, where TB patients and their families' integration into the Nirbhaya project was being conceptualized. So these are a couple of areas that we do. Paucity of time, so I'm moving a little forward. This is to show you a framework in terms of how the entire thing operates. So one side that you see is the seekers for these initiatives. The other side are the givers. So right from the corporates, and in fact, the public sector units also nearly have 4,000 crore plus funds that they're doing for these kind of initiatives. And then there is the consulting, and this platform actually brings in the individuals like us also, if we want to contribute using this platform. So multiple organizations, individuals, sanstha, etc. comes in together to build this, and this platform helps in terms of the implementation, in terms of the project management, in terms of the dashboards, reportings, and the compliances in complete uniqueness from a customer perspective, from a corporate perspective. So therefore, all they have to do is define which theme that they want to do, which area, state, specifically, like I talked about Pune as an example. Near Pune, there's a village, water-related aspects of it. So all of this it would do. And like I said, the earlier part of it, there is strong partnership between public and the private sector. So on the education department, health department, water sanitation, all of these guys that we work together. And then there are the initiatives like it was talked about the FamilyID and the other IDs, that all of them come and get integrated both from the state and central departments to converge and ensure that there are implementing agencies. Now there are multiple implementing agencies across the country on the NGO side that we bring on the table, and then there is an accreditation. So organizations would want where they are utilizing, where the funds are flowing, so that entire ecosystem creation with the right NGOs, with the right set of people to whom the beneficiaries it goes, along with the compliance and the entire detailed report. So one of the examples I was talking about, this was environmental sustainability project. Now manufacturing organizations have a lot of these elements because in a packaging environment, supply chain, they need to credit back to the society. So from that perspective, if they are having a plant which is creating sewages or water wastages, how do they ensure that the entire water sanitation system, irrigation systems are rebuilt? So we help them do this entire from a perspective of identifying location, people, process, environments, creation, project management, and the entire reporting, ensuring that nearly 1,000 plus farmers are impacted by it. On the Vidya Sarthi part of it, we talked about, so right from a Sahyog project, which is ensuring that the migrant workers, students, children are getting imbibed into this. ITI students, people who would want to do another corporate where they wanted skilled post-10 standards. So complete ITI related aspects being carried forward and multiple other aspects of it. Nearly 100 crore plus funds we have distributed with nearly 40 million plus students' life that we have touched over a period of time. This is a fund flow, a very simple process in terms of what we need, what we are doing. Now there's an aspiration that we have. Now while this disbursement today takes nearly 2 or 3 weeks, we want to ensure that this can happen in a day. The entire ecosystem of the partnership grows further and beyond, so that in the ambit, we can bring more and more students and also the corporates who can go ahead and put that across. So this is the impact that we have created across on one of these initiatives. Thank you. Thank you, Gaurav.
Thank you. Thanks, Rakesh, for sharing about this. So this brings us to the end of the panel discussion. Thank you to all the panelists for kind of taking the time, flying into Delhi, especially for this and sharing their insights with us. And thank you to all the delegates for being good listeners. And I hope there were some insights that could kind of come through this panel discussion. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.